All right, next candidate is Mr. Jeff Beals. Jeff is a local teacher, former U.S. diplomat who served with distinction in Iraq, and whose family has had a farm in the Hudson Valley since he was a boy. Jeff served in the Remote East under both Democratic and Republican administrations. After beginning his career as a CIA intelligence officer, Jeff joined the State Department and pushed for peace in the West Bank and Gaza Strip. After his service overseas, Jeff returned to his family's farm here in the Hudson Valley to raise his own family, raise livestock, and answer a call to teach. Today, Jeff lives in Woodstock, where he and his wife both teach. So welcome, Jeff Beals.
Thank you, everybody. You've heard a lot of candidates, so you must be extremely bored by now. So I'm going to try to make this interesting, and I would encourage heckling to start as of now. I'll speak briefly, but this is the prelude to a huge battle for our community. We are going to battle against John Faso. We are going to beat him. We are going to wrest control of this district out of the worst hands of the worst forces of organized money our country has seen since the 1930s. And we are going to make a major play for reviving the Democratic Party and democracy right here in NY-19. And I think the country's eyes are on us to do it. I think it's an enormous responsibility and an enormous privilege that we get votes that matter. And I think you're already doing your share by coming out and listening to all this. So I'm going to give you a couple of what-ifs about my candidacy, my campaign, what this election is about. And then we can talk about the issues that you think are important. But the big what-if that I want to give you is, what if most of the stuff we're talking about is totally irrelevant? What if most of the candidates are really just wasting your time? What if most of the things that are filling your mailbox and mine are the same old garbage that you read in every election cycle that never results in any difference and hasn't for decades? What if the big problem in our country right now is not even that we can't win the votes of Republicans or that we can't draw out Democrats, but that most people don't even bother to vote because they think that politics just doesn't matter? That's what I think is going on. I think most people don't even vote. And I think most of our political discussion has become a big charade where we talk about issues, but we don't change them. We haven't for decades, and we've had a slide towards plutocracy and oligarchy in this country that has been more or less unarrested by either Democrat or Republican for about 40 years, and nothing has changed. And so I would argue to you all that that's the situation we're in right now. That's why we have John Faso, that's why we have this president, and that this election is about whether or not we're going to do something dramatic to arrest that trend. And my proposal to you all is that we all get behind a platform and a candidate that would actually change the lives of everybody in our district, or at least 99%. And I'll just tell you who the candidate is and what the platform is, and then we can throw the questions because you're not heckling. The questions, the candidate is this. It's me. I'm Jeff Beals. I served in the United States government over the course of a decade. I have a lot of government experience. I've been in Washington before. I have dealt with these people before, including neoconservatives I've gone horse yelling at in the worst situations imaginable. And I want to head back to Washington, and I want to stand up for the following platform. The platform is this. Number one, we enact Medicare for all now. Not in a few years, not in the road to it, now. We have a House resolution. It's 676. We should pass it. There's 121 Democrats that want to pass it. I want to be 122. And I want us to count on there being many more. And I've been endorsed in this race by the people for Bernie and the Justice Democrats who have made that endorsement in other races around this district, because we have to count on them doing their part in other districts, and then we all rendezvous in 2019 right there in the Capitol and cast our votes. That's number one. Number two, I think we should forgive student loan debt. Yes. Forgive it. Why are we making trillion-dollar giveaways to giant corporations that aren't paying their taxes to begin with, and we have an entire generation that can't even start its life? So I say we forgive the student loan debt. It's $1.4 trillion, in case you're wondering how much. And yeah, I think we can forgive it because we just made a $1 trillion tax giveaway to giant corporations that didn't need it to begin with. That's number 2. Number 3, I think we should raise Social Security benefits for our seniors now. They're not retiring in dignity. That was the point of the program. Do you know in every other country in the industrialized world, your Social Security package winds up amounting to about 50% of your past income? Here it's about 30%. So we are not fulfilling the mission of that program, a program that was put forward by the granddaddy of this district and the heart of the Democratic Party, and that's FDR. So that's the third piece, okay, of the agenda that I'm promoting. And here's the last piece of it. I'd be the only former United States diplomat in Congress if elected to represent us, at a time when we have an administration that is dragging us to another war in the Middle East. I can assure you, they liked the Iraq war so much, they want an Iran one. I mean, this is fun for them, okay? We've thrown away $6 trillion on these wars. Let's put me in there to stand like a thorn in their sides or a stick in the wheel of the war they're ginning up right now, and argue for putting that money to work here in America towards a Green New Deal and a federal jobs guarantee. I suggest to you that we should put anybody that wants it to work on building a green infrastructure in our community here and across NY-19 and across the country to end our reliance on fossil fuels and change our energy future. And I would add to it more. So I hope you're with that. And so I'll just end with this question, and then you could throw out yours, okay? And I would add to it that that's a program in which we would have people building our parks, helping with elder care for our seniors, helping in education, receiving a livable wage and benefits that sets a floor on what working people have to go through in America to get by. That would change the reality in America. So here's my question for you, and then we'll have at it. Is there anybody here who would actually have their life affected for the better if we were to pass that program and that agenda? Is there anybody? Raise your hand if it would change your life. Because it would change my life. I'm just speaking for myself. And I think that's more or less anybody. So that's what I suggest we do, and I think we can change everything if we do it. We're going to rally a new majority. We're going to do more than beat John Fassa. We're going to revive the Democratic Party. We're going to take back our Congress, and we're going to draw the blueprint for what the rest of America needs to do in 2020. So, question in the back, and we'll go for it from there. Yes?
I didn't get the heckle before.
Heckle. Heckle.
What's the difference between, let me rephrase that. Can what you'd be describing a progressive isolation, a progressive America First routine? If not, please explain why not.
I learned the hard way in our government that everybody who tries to come up with a doctrine or a name for what they're doing winds up getting handicapped by it and dragged by it into countless mistakes, okay? I'm not advocating isolationism. I actually think the United States can be a major force for good in this world. I saw us advocate our responsibility in leading Israel and Palestine to peace when I was out there as a diplomat in the West Bank and Gaza. I'd like to see us play a more assertive role in some of those conflicts. I think we led the world with an agreement to disarm Iran. I think that was an enormously positive agreement that would actually have lessened the nuclear threat. So, no, it's not about isolationism or protectionism. It's about thinking sanely about what we can do to make the world more peaceful and our lives more productive, and breaking the ties of big money that exist internationally as well as nationally. Yes? Yeah.
You have a very interesting platform, a good platform that I agree with. Yet it seems that the Democratic Party in general is moving more to the center and away from more the direction that you're speaking of. How, as an elected official in Congress, could you make an impact to move to bring the Democratic Party more in the direction that you're talking about?
Anybody here read Rolling Stones articles on this race? So there's something behind that. Yeah, that's going on. But you know what? We get to change that. There are not a lot of districts in this country that are doing this right now, or where they are doing it and it matters. Okay, this is one of the only and most important swing districts in the country. So let me be very clear to you all. If we take a district that voted for Obama in the previous presidential election, and then shifted about, 15 points to Donald Trump after having voted for Bernie Sanders in the primary, if we were to take a district like that and elect a strong, tough, experienced progressive who wins over votes from the independents, even wins them over from Republicans, and we have them on our campaign now, and we have independents, we're going to change the calculus of what politics can be in this country. I don't want us to win this election 51-49. That's what I'm trying to tell you all. I'm trying to tell you that this whole politics we're getting used to, where we win elections 51-49, is a huge failure on our part. I'm talking about winning this election 80-20. That's what I want. I want to win by an enormous landslide, and I go to doors all the time, and I knock them. And by the way, I'm not so virtuous that I'm knocking on Republican doors these days. It's a primary. I got to knock on the doors of the people who are going to vote. But very frequently, I was in Highland the other day, I knock on the door, and the person that answers it says, "Oh, you got the wrong door, man." And I go, "Well, wait a minute, aren't you Janice, registered Democrat?" I'm Jeff Beals. "Yeah, I am, but I voted for Donald Trump, and I don't need to hear from you." And I say to that person, "Well, can I just say one thing? I'm running against John Faso. I think that he's an employee of the corporate donors who funded his campaign. I don't think he's working for Donald Trump, for me, or for you. I think he's working for the Mercers and the Koch brothers." And I said, "Let me tell you what I stand for. I think we're throwing away our paychecks on a health insurance industry that just profiteers off our sickness. And I want to end it, and I want us to have a card, and I want that card to mean that you have the right to health care. And I don't want you to pay a copay, and I don't want you to pay a deductible. I want you to have a sane system that takes care of you like the rest of the industrialized world." And you know what they say to me? And I am, 5 for 5 on this, because I just had several of these just over the last few days. "Well, yeah, of course I support that." That's what we're going to do when we dare to speak out for an agenda that means something. So, heckles are fine. Any yes, here.
It seems like trying to get anything done in Washington, it's like they're stuck in quicksand. Nothing gets done. What do you think you could do to go in there and actually get anything done? Because it seems like an impossibility.
Why is nothing getting done in Washington? I think we should ask that question. We're not all geniuses in this room. There's a reason you're clapping when I voice that platform, because guess what it turns out when they poll these platforms, okay? I don't need a poll, and I haven't done any polling in this election. I just know my own life because I need these things. But it turns out there's a vast majority that supports the agenda that I'm talking about, and there has been for years. So why hasn't anything happened? Big money and corporate power control our politics. The politicians who are elected run their campaigns. They come in here and they tell you, as I just heard in this room, in a modern congressional campaign, call time is an absolutely necessary piece of running a campaign. You simply must register and gather $2 million. There is simply no other way around it, people. That is what we must do. But I assure you, once I get to Congress with your vote, I will change that system, and I will never do it again. I'm sorry, but they already failed the test, and the test was right now. We have to find a way to put political leaders in Congress who are not beholden to big money interests before they take the seat. We cannot sell seats before we sit in them, because nothing changes when you're in Congress. It only gets worse. And I can tell you that because I've been there and I've dealt with these Congress people. And I've given them briefings, and they've agreed with me and then done the exact opposite thing 10 minutes later, even though their minds told them otherwise. And so what I'm suggesting to you all, and this is the reason I stepped out of my classroom to run, I know what politics is. I knew what these elections are like. I knew it was almost pointless most times to even run for Congress, but I felt like we had a unique moment. I felt like there was enough of an awakening and enough volunteer energy in us, in this district, and enough of a crisis that we could break the trend of what politics is, and we could run a grassroots campaign that wasn't beholden to big money. And I will tell you right now that if you support what I'm talking about, and everybody in this room were to find 10 people to go out and vote on June 26th, we just won the primary. I mean, it's that small a number of voters in the Democratic primary. There was no reason for this to be a $7 million affair with clogged mailboxes and TV sets blaring ads around the clock. This could have been and can still be a decision made by the citizens based on a thoughtful appreciation of what it will take to change our politics. And I hope you'll make it that. And I think we're on the way to doing it. We got on the ballot off of all volunteer energy. Signs have been put up all off of volunteer energy. Phone bankers are doing this. People are hitting hundreds of doors for me around the district. Our social media presence is dwarfing the other campaigns, all off of this excitement and interest about what we can accomplish. So let's just do it and not listen to anybody tell us it's not possible. Yeah.
You're a teacher. Are you a public school teacher?
No, I'm a teacher at Woodstock Day School. No, not charter. I don't support charter schools, and I don't support vouchers. I don't think they're the right path for us. Yeah. That's a good question, yes.
Yeah. If this is the party of the people, why don't I see people that look like me here?
You want to know why? And I'll give you part of the answer, okay? Part of the answer is that 61% of the population of Kingston is what they call ALICE, asset limited income constrained but employed. I'll give you another word for it. It's called the working poor. It is people who have to work multiple jobs to get by, work full time, and still don't have any spare time or spare income. And I knock doors in Kingston all the time, and people come to the door bleary-eyed, okay? And I feel guilty because, hey, it's just 5:30. I thought this was an okay moment. And they say, oh man, I can't do this now. I have another shift. This was my moment to sleep. And they can't be citizens, and it's not their fault. It's the fault of a political system that has let people down, because we can't even have a democracy without a middle class, and we've started to eliminate it in our country. So that's part of it. And I do think it's something that has to bear on all of our consciences, even if I didn't articulate a platform that helps each of you. I think it's wrong that anybody should work more than one job to get by. I think if they do, something is seriously wrong with our economy, and it's happening.
That is serious, and you were right, and it's a problem, but you were also right in saying that's only part of it.
It's only part of it.
It's only part of it. And we can't all be thrown into that category, so where are the rest of it? I don't get it. This is the party of the people, and yet I repeatedly go places, and I don't see anyone that looks like me.
But you got to bring them here too. I'm just telling you something, because we all got to do this ourselves. We have a breakdown of our democracy happening right now. I've been campaigning now for a year. People still don't even know much about me. And where are they going to find out much? If Matt Taibbi and Rolling Stone hadn't have decided to write a bunch of articles on this, it's not like there was major exposés or investigative reporting being done regularly. It's hard because our media environment has broken down. We're no longer gathering and watching Walter Cronkite. We're not even at the same places. And so we all have a responsibility to try to rebuild the fabric of our community. Yeah?
Actually, picking up on the lady's point, because I was wondering the same thing.
Right.
Do you have any thoughts on why this is? And would you like to share that? Is that okay?
Of course.
Do I have thoughts on why it is?
Yes. And what to do about it, if you have any thoughts.
And what to do about it. I think, number one, we can't all be categorized. You give the example that it really is, but we're not all the same. We're not monolithic.
No.
We are not monolithic, and I am a person of color, but that doesn't mean, but I live in a community of color, and I'm here because I didn't know anything about the candidates. I've been away a lot. I've been out of the area. I wanted to meet the candidates. I want to know what's going on. I want to be involved.
Look, we have to change things so people feel like they absolutely have to vote. That's what I started with, and I still would end with. I think that most people are not here tonight because this is not the number one priority, okay? They don't think that the NY-19 congressional primary is really that big a whoop. I think it is. I think it's a huge whoop. But I don't think that most people think that, and I understand why. And plus, it's hard for them to even come to begin with. We'll talk more. Yeah. Yes, sir.
There's a communication gap. There is no doubt about it.
Yeah.
You know, and you ask me, I don't have a solution. I might not even raise the question if I had a solution, because I'd give the solution. I'd say this is what we need to do.
There you go.
Right?
Me
Rather
too, I
than
get it.
raising the question, but I raise it to everyone here. You know, why is it that you see, you know, you're satisfied, this is what you're used to.
I know.
And you're not questioning it. You have to also question it.
Yeah.
So what's your question, sir?
Partly in relation to this, these days we're seeing a lot of voting manipulation and suppression
Yeah.
through gerrymandering,
Right.
voter ID laws.
Right.
And I think it was the Supreme Court who just voted that it's okay the way the state of Ohio purges its voting rolls.
Right.
What do you think about that, and could you do anything about it if elected?
Our whole electoral system, you know, as I've come to realize from the day that the day I said I was running, a lot of people kind of smiled at me and they were like, oh, good luck with that. And they were looking at me a little bit like the person who's like being carted towards the volcano for human sacrifice, but they don't know it yet. And I've since come to understand that some of them knew better than me that entering into politics meant playing a rigged game. That once I decided, without the backing of an institution, but really as just a government-experienced Democrat who's local and lives here and voted against John Faso, that I would run against him, I was already doing something transgressive for our politics. And what I've since learned is that none of it makes really any sense. I mean, why do we register to vote? Does that make sense to anybody? I mean, think about it. Do you have to register for your human rights? Do we ever say to anybody, I'm sorry, you didn't register for freedom of speech, so we can't provide that for you today, but if you'll contact the DMV, we can ensure that it will be there. What? You know, why are we voting on Tuesdays? Does that make any sense? No. Why is it not a national holiday if they do want us to vote on a Tuesday? Because they don't want us to vote. Why are we voting over the course of a week? Why are we voting off of our cell phones, okay? All of these things could easily be done, but we exist within the matrix, okay? And I'm offering you all the red pill, but it's not going to be pretty, okay? No, but I'm very optimistic that this is an awakening for us. But all of these things have to be tackled, and the number one way to tackle them is to run a campaign that's cognizant of them and doesn't play by those rules from the start. And that's what I'm trying to do, and I think we're well on the way to achieving something. Yes, sir?
Jeff, I really like your platform, but I'm curious about the Sanders campaign supporting you. One of the things Bernie Sanders had to deal with was terminology about how he was defined. Democratic socialist,
Yeah.
socialist, a word that American doesn't resonate very well with a lot of people.
Right.
For a lot of the wrong reasons.
Right.
How are you going to handle that?
I got this questionnaire the other day. It said, are you a progressive, a liberal, a conservative, a reactionary? How would you describe your political philosophy? And I wrote American. And honestly, I mean that. I do think that what I am advocating here might be foreign to some Democrats' ears, but it is actually the native language that we once spoke. It's the language of the people, and it's the platform of the people. I don't even understand why we're having a debate over Medicare for all. Honestly, I have to be honest with you all. I know that there are some issues that we have to discuss, but this one isn't one of them. It is blindingly obvious that we have a rapacious predatory health industry that is extracting enormous wealth from people who are sick and can't afford it. The woman in my biographic video who tells her healthcare story has lost her home in between the shooting of the video and me standing here today. Okay? And I have Democrats telling me that we have to go slow. We're not going fast enough. So I would just argue that we can speak the language of Democrats, and it is not going to be branded anything other than the language of the people. It was spoken by FDR, by Truman, and by JFK, and more, and it will sound fluent again if we dare to utter it. Thank you.